voices.
Well, Siberia Acoustic is basically the acoustic counterpart of Siberia, the last record. And I think over the years, just acoustic music has become part of everything. I mean, that's how I play when I'm home, and that's how I play when I'm backstage warming up, and that's how I write sometimes. I mean, it's just very natural to me. So playing acoustic stuff on YouTube, I kind of just did because it was easier than bringing all your gear. And then eventually fans kind of caught on, and that's when I started making acoustic releases because that's something they wanted. And now it's kind of a thing, so that would be the reason why I guess it came to mind to do an acoustic version of this. And initially it was mine and my manager's plan to like put them out together. But I'm glad that didn't end up happening because I've had 2 years to live with this album and these songs and get it right. And probably March 2 years ago, I went to a cottage, and that was right after everything was written for Siberia, and I did everything acoustically, just brought this cello, and I'm just kind of learning how to play, and a guitar, and just kind of learned how to play everything stripped down like that just to make sure that it all worked. And the versions from that point were very different from where they are now, so it's kind of like they just evolved over time as I played them more and got more comfortable with them and learned the dynamics of my voice and got more intimate with the songs and had jet-lagged sleepless nights where I would come up with arrangement ideas. Ended up taking it into the studio last summer and just making it sound awesome, and just, you know, tired, just unable to sleep, just sitting in the corner doing very tired vocals and really interesting melodic arrangements, then bringing a real cellist in. It was just, whoa, whole new experience. So Siberia Acoustic was originally intended to be just a stripped down version of the album, but it became so much more. It's just like another album now.
I'm off on my road here. The fence.
People's impression of acoustic albums is that it's like a shadowy clone child of one of them, but it's actually another kid. It's a whole different kid. I mean, there's dubstep breakdowns, there's rap parts in the original. How do you do that acoustically, right? That means reinventing. That means reinventing the songs. They're different songs. I mean, they're the same, but sometimes there's chord changes, and sometimes you just have to work it differently to make it beautiful in its own right, as though if you heard it for the first time, you wouldn't need to have known the original. And that's why the song order is all completely different. Some of the songs aren't even on it. A couple of songs aren't on it because it just was not the same album. With Siberia, there's only a couple that acoustically were written first. On the first album, a lot of it was singer-songwriter turned to electronic. But on Siberia, a lot of the stuff like Flex and Flow, Suspension, these Time Is Everything, these songs all started with the beat and the bass, like Toes even, and then lyrics and melody came later. So stripping it down was actually a challenge. Sometimes, like stripping Flex and Flow down was like, that was the hardest one for me to figure out. That one and Timing Is Everything. I was like, how do you do these bass drops? How do you make this energetic? You know, how on earth do you make this song come across without the very part of the song that makes this song this song? So that was a challenge, but with enough time and enough reworking and enough inventing and creativity, it's suddenly this beautiful ambient piece and took on a life of its own. Playing the guitar at 30,000 feet is something that isn't really premeditated. I mean, that is premeditated because there's a lot of rules against not opening your guitar and playing. But that was actually during a trip up to the Arctic where the airline was really helpful with getting us there and back, because it was, you know, to promote a lot of the beauty of the Northwest Territories. So I think everyone was excited about it. There was a seat sale on the airline because I was doing a show up in the Arctic. And so that, you know, everyone was involved and everyone was excited, you know, and we asked the flight attendants if we could do it, and we told them what was going to happen, and it didn't work on the way there, but it worked for us on the way back. So it was very premeditated, you know, pulling that guitar out. But what we didn't expect was how noisy the plane would be. So I moved to the back of the plane because there were some empty seats, and opened the guitar and strummed it, and I couldn't hear a thing. I mean, it was so loud because because the planes are always shipping goods up to the Arctic, so half cargo, front was passenger. It was just loud. It was such a loud thing. So I had to steal the audio guys' like ears, and so I could just hear my voice and guitar. It was the only way I could have heard myself perform. So I snuck in little earbuds, and I'm playing just hoping it sounds good, because it was just, you couldn't hear a thing. And I listened back to it later, and it was, whoa, that actually turned out. It was cool. But that being said, no one else on the plane heard it. lot of Canada is largely untouched, and there's a lot of isolated communities up in the north that don't get a lot of shows as it is, let alone food being very expensive, and it's a harder environment to live in than just living in Toronto. You know, where you just take advantage of having access to everything all the time. So going up there, one of the reasons was to basically raise food donations for the food bank, because the food bank had been ransacked a couple times. So admission to the show was a food item, and we ended up raising a truck full of food, which was really cool. But we also wanted some cool footage of up there and just showing people how beautiful it was, and for myself, seeing how beautiful it was in a part of my own country that I've never seen. And when you go up there and you first get off the plane onto the tarmac, it's so cold. I mean, it was, I don't know what it is in Fahrenheit, but it was minus 30, minus 40 the whole time. And it's so hot, you can throw boiling water into the air and it just disappears, or so cold, it just disappears. So it was an experience, that's for sure. I mean, that's when you first realize that there's very little you actually know about your own country. You know, because that's what most of the north of Canada is. I learned a lot about the community. I learned a lot about that part of the country, but I also learned the power of music. You know, that music can take you somewhere like that, and there was still people singing, and there was people that knew it. I mean, that's the power of the internet as well, obviously, but there's no borders. You know, there's no separation between people. It's awesome, and the people there are so excited to see music live for the first time. I mean, 300 people who obviously had never seen me before. A lot of them hadn't even heard of me before, coming to the show to just be in the presence of music. And I think that it's really cool. You see music everywhere you go, you know. And we went out to the only bar in town that night called the Mad Trapper. It was based on this really cool story and history about some like serial murderer trapper that lived out there and everything. But there's so much history, you know, but there was like a house band there, and it's awesome. There's music everywhere. I just love that. So that was really cool to see, and meet people there that I've been fans for years. And I'm blown away, and I'm just apologetic in my heart because like, I'm sorry I didn't know or come here. You know, you just underestimate some of the communities that you just overlook, you know?
On a mountain trail, details, you breathe in when I exhale. No matter where